Welcome back, dedicated learners, to our advanced English conversation space. I'm Caspian, and joining me today is the brilliantly insightful Elara.
Hello, everyone. It's wonderful to have you here. Today, we are diving into a subject that affects every single one of us, yet is rarely discussed with the clarity it deserves: the art and science of building genuine, sustainable wealth.
Exactly. And before we go any further, let's be explicit about our dual purpose today. First, we want to equip you with the sophisticated, nuanced vocabulary of finance and personal development. Second, we want to shift your perspective. We often confuse a high salary with being rich, but as we will discover, those two concepts are entirely different beasts.
That is such a crucial distinction, Caspian. We've all met people who earn astronomical figures, yet live paycheck to paycheck, and conversely, individuals with modest incomes who achieve genuine financial freedom. So let's start at the very beginning. Caspian, can you recall the exact moment when the concept of wealth became concrete for you?
Oh, it was brutally unglamorous. It was right after university. I landed my first real job, and for the first time, my bank account wasn't perpetually in the red. But after 6 months of what I thought was success, I looked at my statement and realized I had accumulated absolutely nothing. I was suffering from a severe case of lifestyle creep before I even knew what it was. I was spending my newfound surplus on cakeout, gadgets, and social outings, mistaking cash flow for net worth.
I think that is the universal wake-up call. We all have that moment where we realize that the money is passing through our hands like water. For me, it was when I wanted to buy my first used car. I had a decent job, but the down payment required felt like climbing Everest. It forced me to sit down and actually plot a trajectory. That was my first financial goal.
And that word goal is the foundation of everything we're going to talk about. Wealth isn't accidental, it is deliberate. It requires us to move from passive consumption to active, intentional construction. We are building a house, and the bricks are our daily habits.
I love that metaphor, building brick by brick. But before we lay the bricks, we must understand the blueprint. So let's dismantle the biggest myth. Wealth is not synonymous with income. Income is what you earn. Wealth is what you keep. It's the accumulated assets, stocks, bonds, real estate, or a business that continue to produce value for you even when you are sleeping.
Precisely. A high income is a great tool, but if your expenses scale linearly with it, you are trapped in what economists call the hedonic treadmill. You buy a nicer car, upgrade your wardrobe, move to a pricier apartment. Your lifestyle inflates to consume every extra dollar. This is the phenomenon of lifestyle inflation, and it is the single greatest enemy of long-term wealth accumulation.
It's a silent predator, and the defense against this predator is a clear, structured plan. Let's talk about financial goals in depth. A financial goal isn't just a wish. It needs to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. For instance, instead of saying, I want to save money, you say, I need to save $12,000 for a down payment on a property within 18 months.
And breaking it down further makes it digestible. If that is your goal, you immediately calculate that you need to save roughly $667 a month. Suddenly, that huge number feels less intimidating because you have a tactical step. When I was tackling my student loans, I used a snowball method. I paid off the smallest debt first, just to get a psychological win, then rolled that payment into the next. It gave me momentum.
That psychological momentum is the snowball effect in action. Small wins build confidence. But here's the critical next step, Caspian. Once you have your goals and you have your savings, you can't just let that money sit idle in a bank account. Inflation is the silent thief that erodes your purchasing power. To build wealth, your money must work for you. It needs to be invested.
Absolutely. And for many of us, investing feels like navigating a dense, dangerous jungle. It's intimidating. I remember my first foray into the stock market. I was petrified. I started by putting a modest sum into a mutual fund, which is essentially a pool of money collected from many investors to invest in a diversified portfolio of stocks and bonds. It felt safer because I wasn't betting on a single company, but on an entire sector.
That diversification is your life raft. The financial world often talks about calculated risks. We aren't gambling, we're strategically allocating capital. For beginners, mutual funds and ETFs are often the most prudent starting points. They offer instant diversification without requiring you to be a stock-picking prodigy.
And then there's real estate. Historically, real estate has been a powerful vehicle for wealth. It provides not just potential appreciation, the increase in value over time, but also passive income through rent. However, it comes with its own set of challenges: illiquidity, maintenance costs, and market volatility.
Very true. But whether it's stocks or bricks and mortar, the underlying principle remains. You need to overcome the paralysis of analysis. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to start. And a crucial part of starting is managing the obstacles, specifically debt.
Debt can be the anchor that sinks your ship, but it's important to distinguish between good debt and bad debt. Bad debt is high-interest consumer debt, primarily credit card balances. I remember swiping my card without a second thought, only to be shocked when the minimum payment barely dented the interest. That experience was a catalyst. It taught me to treat credit cards not as magic money, but as a tool for convenience that must be paid in full every month to avoid crippling interest.
That discipline is essential. It directly impacts your credit score, that 3-digit number that determines your ability to borrow for mortgages or cars at favorable rates. A high credit score is a financial superpower. It can save you tens of thousands of dollars in interest over a lifetime. So the golden rule is simple. If you can't afford to pay cash for the item, don't put it on the card. Use credit to build history, not to finance consumption.
Let's shift gears to automation. This is where we leverage technology to override our psychological weaknesses. If we rely on willpower to save money at the end of the month, we will inevitably fail. There will always be a more urgent expense. The solution is to pay yourself first. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking to your savings and investment accounts the moment your paycheck hits.
It is such a game changer. I call it out of sight, out of mind. When the money is automated, it happens in the background. You adjust your lifestyle to what remains in your checking account. You never miss the money because you never had the chance to spend it mentally. This consistency is the engine of wealth building. It's the slow, methodical drip that eventually fills the ocean.
And beyond saving, we must also think about our earning capacity. In today's volatile economy, relying on a single stream of income is a precarious strategy. You are essentially putting all your eggs in one basket.
That's a classic proverb, and it holds immense weight here. What happens if the company downsizes, or if the industry shifts? Having multiple streams of income provides a financial moat around your castle. This can be a side business, a freelance consulting gig, or an online venture. The digital economy has democratized income generation. You can monetize a skill, whether it's writing, coding, teaching, or even tutoring in English.
Exactly. I started offering weekend consulting sessions in my field of expertise. Initially, it was just for pocket money, but it quickly grew into a significant income stream. The extra capital accelerated by investment contributions and allowed me to pay down my mortgage faster. But it's not just about the money, it's about the mindset shift. When you know you have other options, you feel a sense of psychological security that is invaluable.
We've touched on many practical strategies, but let's revisit the psychological bedrock of wealth, the mindset. There's a profound difference between a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset. A scarcity mindset focuses on lack. I can never have enough. I'm bad with money. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. An abundance mindset, however, sees opportunities. It says, I can learn this, and there is enough wealth in the world to be created.
And adopting that growth mindset is non-negotiable. The people who succeed financially are not necessarily the ones who started with the most. They are the ones who were willing to educate themselves. They read books, listened to podcasts, and sought mentors. They accept that making mistakes is part of the journey. Maybe you invest in a stock that plummets. You analyze why it happened, learn the lesson, and move on. Resilience is a currency.
It truly is a marathon, not a sprint. When I first started investing, the market's daily fluctuations were anxiety-inducing, but I learned to zoom out. Wealth is built over decades, not days. It requires patience, discipline, and the ability to stay on track even when the world seems chaotic.
Well, Elara, we've covered everything from mindset and goals to investment and debt management. To wrap up this rich discussion, I think we should do a deep dive into the lexicon we have woven throughout our conversation. Let's revisit the vocabulary that defines this subject, but let's do it interactively.
That is a perfect segue. Let's walk through these essential terms together. First, wealth. It isn't cash in your pocket. It's the total market value of all your assets minus your liabilities. If you own a property that is worth $200,000 and a car worth $10,000, but you owe $120,000 on the mortgage, your net wealth is $90,000. It's a net figure.
Next, lifestyle inflation. This is the psychological trap where your spending increases as your income rises. It's why doctors and lawyers can sometimes be broke, while a school teacher can be a millionaire. It's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. If you get a 10% raise, but you increase your spending by 12%, you are going backwards.
And regarding protection, we have the emergency fund. This is liquid cash set aside to cover 3 to 6 months of living expenses. It's the buffer against life's curveballs, a job loss, a medical emergency, or a car breakdown. It prevents you from having to sell your investments at a loss or taking on high-interest debt when things go wrong.
Let's talk about the growth side. Compound interest is the phenomenon where the interest you earn begins to earn interest itself. It is the most powerful force in finance. If you invest $1,000 and it grows at 10% annually, you have $1,100. The next year, you earn 10% on the $1,100, giving you $110 instead of $100. That is the snowball effect.
Then we have calculated risks. This separates the investor from the gambler. A calculated risk involves research, due diligence, and a clear understanding of the potential downside. You don't jump into a high-risk venture blindly. You ensure it aligns with your risk tolerance and long-term strategy.
And finally, let's define financial independence. This is the point where your passive income, the money your assets generate, exceeds your living expenses. Once you reach that threshold, work becomes a choice, not a necessity. That is the ultimate destination of this journey.
That is a beautiful destination to visualize. So, dear learner, we ask you, what is your first financial goal? Maybe it's building that emergency fund. Maybe it's paying off a specific credit card. We encourage you to write that goal down in the comments. By articulating it, you make it real.
We also strongly encourage you to download the PDF link below. It contains this entire transcript, the vocabulary list with examples, and a practical worksheet to help you map out your financial journey. We designed it to be a tool you can revisit.
This is Caspian and Elara signing off for today. Remember, the barrier to wealth is rarely the size of your paycheck. It's the size of your vision and the consistency of your habits. Every small, conscious decision you make today contributes to a more secure tomorrow. Thank you for investing your time with us.
If you found value in this discussion, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell. We are building a community of advanced English learners who aspire to think bigger and speak better. Keep learning, keep saving, and keep growing. We will see you in the next episode.